Does Golden Boy Promotions cherry pick opponents for Luis Ortiz? I thought this would be an interesting video, and when you look through Luis Ortiz's box rec, a few things you notice is he's always appears to be the bigger guy in the ring all the way through his career. It's kind of reminiscent of George Foreman when he made his comeback. George Foreman even said himself he wanted to always be the bigger guy in the ring. Maybe not always in height wise. I think he fought some opponents that were a bit taller than him, but he was outweighing all of his opponents. And this is kind of the same as Luis Ortiz right now. When you look at his opponents, they're all 6'4" and under. Some of them are usually quite short for a heavyweight these days. And it appears like they always try and make Luis Ortiz to be the bigger guy in the ring. Now, Luis Ortiz is 6'4", 230 to 240 pounds. He's a bit heavier against Tommy Thompson there. He's got a massive 84-inch reach, so you can't really fault him for having a reach advantage over everybody he fights. You can't help that. I mean, he's just got a ridiculously long reach. But when it comes to his height, being 6'4", which is average for a heavyweight right now, it is a bit strange. Up until Tony Thompson, he had never fought anyone above his height, because there's a lot of heavyweights these days above 6'4". 6'4" is just the average. So it is a possibility that they were kind of cherry picking smaller opponents, lighter opponents, opponents that they knew Luis Ortiz could dominate quite easily and bully it in the ring and look very impressive doing it. Now, obviously, he fought Tony Thompson a few days ago, and Tony Thompson just got completely outclassed. And Tony Thompson is taller, a lot taller than Luis. He's 6'5.5", and Tony Thompson as well was over 260 pounds when he fought Luis Ortiz. But you could also say that's cherry picking as well. I know Tony Thompson was still ranked in the top 20. I know Tony Thompson's a good boxer. Previously, he was very good, but at 44 years old, extremely heavy for his, compared to what his career average was. It wasn't the best Tony Thompson, and you could say that they knew that. The other thing you can't fault, though, is the possibility that it was the only reason they fought Tony Thompson is because they couldn't get the Alexander fight. Not Alexander Ustinov, the other one. I can't remember how you pronounce his name, Ditrimenko or something like that. They couldn't get that fight, and Alexander was obviously, he's going to be a lot taller than Luis Ortiz, heavier than Luis Ortiz, and had pretty much the same reach as Luis Ortiz, and they couldn't get that fight. Alexander pulled out of it for whatever reason. Maybe it wasn't paying enough, or he didn't like the risk. So, yeah, Luis was aiming for a taller opponent, so maybe you can't fault him for that. Maybe it's just a coincidence that his past opponents have been average height and a lot smaller for a heavyweight these days. But it's going to be interesting when he eventually has to fight someone a lot bigger than him. Obviously, his next fight's supposed to be Alexander Ustinov, and Ustinov's 6'8", 300 pounds. I'm not sure what his reach is. I don't think that's recorded anywhere, but I'm sure it's quite close to whatever Luis Ortiz has as a reach. Even though Luis Ortiz's reach is abnormally long for his height. But a lot of people, including myself, have been making a lot of assumptions about Luis Ortiz. They've been looking at his fights, seeing how easily he's dominating them, looking at his knockout ratio, looking at how aggressive he is and how easily he bullies his opponents. But is that all going to change? That's the thing you've got to think. Is it all going to change when he starts fighting decent opponents that are significantly larger than him? People like Tyson Fury, people like Deontay Wilder, people like Wladimir Klitschko, people like Anthony Joshua. I won't throw Charles Martin in there right now because I'm not too sure about Charles Martin. But there's a lot of heavyweights out there that are tall and that are good. Just like I say, 6'4" is the average height. So when he gets thrown in with Ustinov there, okay, Ustinov's not the best fighter out there, but he's very good. You've got to be very good to be ranked in the top 40. I mean, out of I think there's 1,700 heavyweights in the world right now, so to be ranked in the top 40, you've got to be good, and to have that size, we're going to get to see against Ustinov how good Luis Ortiz is. If Luis Ortiz bullies Alexander Ustinov, which a lot of people are hoping for, then yeah, Luis Ortiz really is the real deal, and everyone should really have high hopes for him. A lot of people do already, but it's going to be interesting to see how he performs against these taller opponents. That's all I've really got to say.